to August press conference with the city manager, and I've also invited today our finance director, Stephen Wade, to join us this morning with some information that I think is pertinent to what's happened in just this last week. And before I get too far into the agenda of things I want to speak to, I want to bring to mind a couple of things that I've talked about at council meeting. One of them was the request that my office had put out to help us in finding qualified persons to volunteer and serve on different cities, boards, and commissions. I am pleased to say that my executive assistant is correct. I think we've had over 20 applications come in, and that's really encouraging. And the quality of those applications is really good. It's not that that we didn't have quality beforehand, but I am really pleased to see that the community is responding to that need. They are identifying those areas of interest that they want to serve on and have sent the applications in, and we're in the process of filling those boards. And I think it's become a more robust process by looking at the applications, vetting the information that we get, making sure that we're matching everybody up with what they want to do so that they'll be long-term volunteers. I think that's part and parcel to Topeka, and that's how a segue into the next comment, and that is our volunteer base in Topeka. Oftentimes it is pointed out that in Topeka there are a lot of things that are done by nonprofit organizations that rely upon the volunteers in Topeka, and there seems to be no end to the number of people who want to help in some way. They just need sometimes the idea or the suggestion of where they can be most effective. And so that then leads us to what we're doing with changing the culture of code. And that has really been a surprise, I think, in, again, the volunteer base that has stepped forward to help with the initial stages of that effort and program. One of them is the lawn mowing effort that I think is the first stage. Again, with the efforts of Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala and Councilwoman Hiller, who have been working on this project for some time, and as they shepherd it down the road, the volunteers that have showed up to help them in the initial stages have really been, I think, surprising in number. So kudos to them and what they're doing, and to those volunteers. To add specifics to that, if you have not yet had the opportunity to volunteer, there is a number that has been put out that you can call, and they will direct you to that opportunity for you. And that is 785-368-9530. That's 785-368-9530. And if you contact that number, a city employee will help you find that place where you think it can be most helpful in bringing about change to how we address code here in the city of Topeka. I wanted to get those announcements out before we get down the road. We have many other things to talk about today. So one of the real reasons that I have asked Mr. Wade to join us today is because I know the community is very interested in what happens next with the ARPA hearings. And if everybody has had a chance, at least in here, to look at that meeting that took place held by the Policy and Finance Committee, I think I would firstly want to give them thanks for their effort and due diligence in what they did. That was a lot of applications. Was it like 85? 85. 85 applications that came in requests for ARPA funds. That's a difficult task. I've served on the committee that existed before on the grants committee, and you want to give money to everybody because everybody has a good thing that they're doing for the community, but it's not possible. We have limited funds, so it's important that we really give due diligence to what we're doing with those funds and make them as impactful as possible for the community. And so today I'd like to ask Mr. Wade to give us like a bit of an update that will follow and what happens next, so that people who are following the process can continue to monitor it. Mr. Wade?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly we have For anybody who did not get a chance to watch the proceedings last Friday, those are available at topeka.org, so you can watch the proceedings themselves. I think that if the deputy mayor were here, he would tell you that, to your point, some very difficult decisions with 85 applicants. But those first numbers have been cut down, and those that were not selected to advance to the next round will receive a letter either today or tomorrow that notifies them that. The rest of them have some questions that they're being asked to do, and those questions are due this Friday for the committee for additional consideration. And then I believe on September 23, the Policy and Finance Committee will regather and then for some additional consideration. So lots of applicants, lots of money that's being requested. Mr. Mayor, I think was telling you earlier that had a chance to be around 34 different U.S. communities last week, and the process that Topeka is doing is very unique. It's very different, and this committee and this council is involving our community, and this is really good stuff to see.
Just to follow up, I know that in the beginning when these funds came in, city manager and others were getting requests from the community is, why aren't we spending this money right now? Why haven't we started to disseminate the money throughout the community? We wanted to be very purposeful in what we were doing, and so we chose this route to make sure that we were not just making decisions off the cuff, that they were considered decisions that took in the community input and the feedback. And I think this step process has raised our level of responsibility in how we handle these funds to a very high level. And as Mr. Wade points out, of those communities that he had contact with, just about all the communities had already dispersed their funds.
Right.
So we're very unique in a good way, that we're really taking this effort to make sure that the monies are used in the most impactful way. So I appreciate the opportunity to update us on that, and we'll keep following it. A big piece of this is that we're equitable in how we do put these monies to work for the community. And to that effort, I want to speak to something that I have talked about openly before and will continue to advocate for. In this upcoming budget process, I have asked the city manager to work with me, and he has done an excellent job in helping me vet information that came into my office to bring us to a place where we have put a position description into the budget for a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer, for lack of a better term, that would work directly under the city manager and the mayor's office to make sure that this advocacy that we're talking about, that we heard about at the ARPA hearings, is ongoing. That it's not just at times when we're looking at available funds or budget considerations, that it is a way that we change how we think we provide services for everyone in the city on a day-to-day basis. This office, that office, will be, as I consider it, the advocate for the whole entire community, so that no specific community feels like they are either being targeted or left out of consideration. So it's something that I feel very strongly about. I think that unless you make an intentional effort to do it, it's something that becomes lost in the shuffle of everything else that goes on in a busy day in government. So people who are paying attention to both the ARPA funds and to the budget process, if they have questions about that position and how it will function, I invite you to call either myself or the city manager, and we'll be more than glad to share the vision that we see that will help the city move forward on an ongoing basis as how we consider everyone's needs in the community. So now I want to move on to something else and that everyone is following, and that is the update on the selection of the city manager. City manager.
The process, as everybody knows, is moving forward. August 30th, we have interviews scheduled. The final 4 candidates have been identified and made public, and so everybody can maybe do their own research and look into the candidates. And at the August 30th, the interviews, there's a community panel as well as a governing body interview panel. And then in the evening, there will be a public meet and greet where the citizens and the community can come in and then meet the candidates for the office of city manager. And I encourage everybody to come out and participate in that. Be a good time to have conversation with individuals and meet the candidates firsthand and have some possibly meaningful communication with them. And there'll also be a comment box which you're able to write comments or questions, and you can deposit those in the box, and then the governing body will also look at those. And then the governing body will then get with the community panel to review their input. That won't take place on the 30th, it'll take place after that. Give everybody an opportunity to kind of decompress, review all the information, and take in those interviews and absorb that information. So the process is set, and we're August 30th is where we're headed.
Thank you. I want to stress that if there's an opportunity for the public to speak to their city council person about this process, if they have some concerns or some thoughts and ideas that they would like to make sure that their council representative takes into consideration during this interview process, that they contact them directly, or they can call my office, but reach out to your council district representative and let them know what you are thinking, what you want to know about these candidates. How will they affect the city? How will they bring different changes to the city? Be asking the critical questions now before a selection is made, if a selection is made. So do that now rather than after the fact. We want your participation in that. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Another thing I want to acknowledge is I got a chance to take part in the celebration of the Impact Avenues. It's a program that the city administers. It was their 3rd anniversary. They are doing amazing work. They are really making changes in people's lives that are significant and long-lasting. And they developed a process that I think is very effective, that's inclusive. It kind of brings everybody in a one portal entry kind of a thing to evaluate the needs and then address them in the most effective way. They also created a video, I think, with the help of Gretchen Spiker. And I think what I'd like to be able to do is, if that isn't yet available, have it on our site, and or maybe have a presentation to the governing body one of these Tuesday evenings, so that they can all share in the success that effort has seen over the years. I'm very glad to see that I sat next to a woman who was a client for the Impact Avenues. And I'll tell you this, as they spoke and then when the video started, not to be too dramatic, she started to cry. Because it affected her and her husband and her family that much in their lives. So to see what our staff is putting together and how they are really making a difference and not just talking about what they want to do, they're doing it. I want to congratulate all the staff who work with the Impact Avenues and what they were doing. And I was privileged to sit there and applaud them for their success. Another thing I want to highlight is Level 2 Technical Center at the library. I got to be there behind the scenes initially, and then there for the ribbon cutting. If you haven't had a chance to go by there and take a look at it, I tell you, it's really impressive what our library has evolved into over the years. It is not just a library. It was a case study that came to my mind when I was thinking about this, that we looked at about what is the core business of a library. And some people still think maybe you check out books and a few videos and discs and stuff, and that's about it. But they've gone way beyond that. And this Level 2 Technology Center will really be a boon to a lot of people who don't have the resources initially in their home. You have the internet connection, maybe have some difficulty with it. It's all right there at the library. They've got, I can't remember what they said, 30 computers available. They've got 3D printers available. They've got a working podcast studio and a video studio, and you can use it for just about any project that you might have in mind, or just for your personal use to build a resume or do research. It's all available, and all you need is a library card. That's it. I mean, that's pretty good membership fee. So I just really want to highlight that again. I can't speak too much about what our library brings to our community. The other thing I want to ask Mr. Cochran to update us on is our redistricting effort, if you would fill us in.
Yeah, as everybody's aware, redistricting is taking place. We're looking at what that looks like. The committee met last week, had an open hearing to get input from the citizens and how they might see their vision of how the maps might look. One of the important things is the NIA boundaries are not changing at all. So it'll just be the council districts, but not the NIA districts. They will remain the same, which is important. They stay intact. The important thing is that they have their next meeting set for September 1st. They're continuing to receive citizen input on that process, and then they have to present a final product to the governing body by September 30th. So if you still want to provide input to the redistricting process, please do so. You're able to do that through a variety of different ways. You can contact your council district members if you want, or you can contact the city manager's office if you need be, or the mayor's office, and we can get you to where you need to be if you have inputs or comments. But this is extremely important to the citizens of Topeka and to the city as a whole, because it does impact the next election that will take place in a couple years. So it is important part of our process. It's a process that sometimes people don't think much about, don't think it's important, but it is extremely important. So if you, as